Today is a Friday Farm Report, so I have Aram Leighton on the show. We're talking Francisco Alvarez, Ronny Mauricio, Baty, and oh wait, we now have to start the show talking about the most ridiculous game of the year. The Philadelphia Phillies really blew a 6-run lead in the ninth inning as the Mets score 7 runs on 8 hits. In the Mets' history of the last 25 years, they were 0-330 in these spots. They just had the most improbable win ever. Let's talk about that, and then later we'll do the prospect stuff too.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On Mets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein, and what a day it is to be back on YouTube with video rolling to discuss what we just watched in this Mets and Phillies game. I am still reeling from it, and I find it absolutely hilarious thinking of the Philly sports fan who, I'll be honest, I'm very emotionally intertwined with currently, because for those of you who don't know, I'm a Miami Heat fan when it comes to basketball. I live in South Florida. My dad from the Northeast, from New Jersey, made me a Mets fan and a Giants fan, allowed me to pick my fandom in basketball. So what the whole thing is, right now I'm watching Heat Sixers and watching the Heat destroy the Sixers and break their heart. And now I get to see the Mets pull out the most improbable comeback ever. There's no point in talking about the first 8 innings. Who cares about that? Because the first 8 innings ended up having zero consequence on the ultimate result of the game, because the Mets decided to wake up in the ninth. And even though Taijuan Walker didn't look good and the Mets got down early and the offense didn't do much other than a Starling Marte homer in the 6th, you get to the ninth inning and Starling Marte up again. He singles to start things off. Like, all right, cool. You know, they're not going to go down without a fight. You know, Corey Knebel's on the mound. Actually, my bad. I forgot. So much happened in that ninth inning. Corey Knebel wasn't even supposed to be on the mound. So excuse me. They did not do all of this on Corey Knebel. First, it was James Norwood. So you get the first hit. And then Lindor hits a home run. Like, all right, cool. You know, Lindor needed that. You know, you're not even thinking about the game because, as I said in the intro on YouTube, 0 for 330 in their last games in these spots. The Mets have not won a game like this in 25 years. So you say, all right, okay. A nice home run for Lindor, get him back on track, 5th of the year, could heat him up for the series. It's good to see. Then Pete doubles. He said, okay, all right, little something cooking. Eduardo Escobar lines out. Like, all right, it was inevitable. The Mets are going to lose. Then Jeff McNeil, being Jeff McNeil, how he has done all year, finds a hole, gets a hit. Now suddenly it's time to get Corey Knebel and his 0.87 ERA. Knebel going into this game had allowed just 1 earned run all year. The Phillies signed him to be their closer, and he had been holding up his end of the bargain. Only 6 hits allowed. Can't stop laughing, man. What happened next? Well, Mark Canha gets a hit. Dom Smith, decent at bat, works a full count, ends up striking out. You're like, all right, here we go. It's over, but good fight by the Mets. I was already had my speech all mapped out of what I would say, talking about how sometimes how a team loses is a great indicator of who they are, and the Mets showing fight for 27 outs. It's just a positive sign, even in a loss. But they didn't lose. That's the thing, Philly sports fans who might be watching or listening. They didn't lose because J.D. Davis, of all people, rips a double. So that scores 1 run. Mets obviously playing it safe. Could have scored 2, but you're not going to run into the last out of the inning, especially when you're heating up. And then Brandon Nimmo steps up. And I was thinking, if I'm Philly, do I walk Nimmo? I seriously had that thought because lefty on righty matchup, and Brandon Nimmo is such a good hitter. You see Knebel gets ahead 0-1, then he tries to throw one up and out of the zone. Nimmo's not going to swing at anything out of the zone. This guy has great plate discipline. And sure enough, Nimmo makes you pay and gets a hit. And then, if there was any question if maybe they should have walked Nimmo, I guess Starling Marte erased that when he hits the huge double that scores Nimmo from first base. And suddenly the Mets find themselves with a lead in the ninth inning. How did they win that game? That's a game that almost nobody wins, but it's always held for the exclusive few, for the Dodgers of the world, for the Astros when they've been great, for the Yankees. That's an elite team win. That's the type of win that only happens when you are a fantastic team. I don't think the Nationals are battling back from down 6 runs against a guy who had been good all year. But what do the Mets do? They grind out at bats. They're not trying to do too much. You look at all of that, right? And granted, it all started with a home run from Lindor. That got you into somewhat sniffing distance, even though the homer still puts you 4 runs down. But the point being, that got you close. But really, what was it that put the Mets over the top? It wasn't just them hitting a bunch of home run balls. It was them stringing together hits, and that's who they've been all year. So just an incredible win to find a way against a Philly team that needed that. Now you're 7 games up on the Phillies, and it's May 5th. Absolutely ridiculous. Like I said in the intro, today's show was not supposed to be about Mets Phillies. I had a great conversation with Arm Leighton. For those of you who haven't been paying attention on the YouTube channel or listening on the podcast feed, I spent my last week checking out the Mets minor league system. I saw Ronny Mauricio, Brett Baty, Francisco Alvarez, and Mark Vientos up close. Aram Leighton works for the company that I work for. He's technically my boss for Just Baseball, and he is a great prospect. Mine just came out with his top 100 prospect list. And so I wanted to have a conversation with him going through what I saw and what he saw when he made his current top 100 rankings. So we will get to all of that in just a minute. But first, summer is coming. And with summer, you're going to need some food on the go. And Built Bars are the perfect snack to take with you on family vacations. Throw them in your bags, in your kids' backpacks, and make sure that everyone has a bar so you are fueled for your summer adventures. The best part about Built Bars, they're healthy and delicious. No more sacrificing delicious food for health. With Built Bars, you can have both, and it's easy. All you have to do is go to Built.com and order now. All Built Bars and Puffs come covered in 100% real chocolate. And if you haven't tried the Puffs yet, they are crazy good, and they come in some awesome flavors like the banana cream pie and even the churro. Who doesn't want a protein bar that tastes like a churro that only comes with 140 calories? You got to sign me up for that. And if that's not enough flavor for you, then you might want to try a mix box where you can mix 12 different flavors of the bars and puffs and see what you like best. Go to built.com, get all your favorites, and use the promo code LOCK15 to get 15% off your next order. Again, that's promo code LOCK15 for 15% off. Built.com. Whether she prefers a statement piece or everyday subtle elegance, BlueNile.com has fine jewelry options for every mom this Mother's Day. Shop high-quality classic diamond earrings, elegant tennis bracelets, or gemstone pendant necklaces. Blue Nile has jewelry experts on hand 24/7, available via phone or chat to help you find a memorable gift at every budget. When you commit to a piece, so does Blue Nile, with guaranteed service and repair for life. They also have the diamond price guarantee, where you can contact Blue Nile to compare a competitor's diamond against one of theirs, and in most cases, they can meet or beat their price. This Mother's Day, give mom something she'll treasure forever with fine jewelry from BlueNile.com, and Locked On Mets listeners get $50 off $500. This podcast exclusive is only good through Mother's Day. Use the code Locked On. Again, that's code Locked On. Plus, every order is insured, ships free, and arrives in a discreet package that won't give away what's inside. Shop stress-free and find your forever peace by going to BlueNile.com today. I am laughing right now because I'm joined by Aram Leighton, who right before I hit record said I'm pulling up Ronny Mauricio's chase rates. Aram Leighton, the host of about 1 million different properties over at Just Baseball, the founder of Just Baseball, hosts the Just Baseball show, hosts the State of the Division that we just recorded for the NLE, so that's up right now, and the Call Up podcast, where he just recently has been going through his top 100 list. I should ask you again, how are you doing now? A couple weeks removed. Are you starting to get back to normal life? Are things okay for you?
Yeah, man, it's awesome to be able to write other things again. So I'm very excited about that, because every time I went to go write an article, I'm like, wait, but you've got like 10 more write-ups you got to finish. So I couldn't justify it as much. But once we got the 55,000 words done in the top 100 list, which several Mets guys on, excited to talk about that. I'm finally able to get into other pieces and write about other players and start writing more frequent articles. So I'm very proud of the top 100 list. It was a ton of fun writing up all the players. But man, it was a relief to finish that thing. It was a relief for sure.
And if you want to check it out, obviously, like I said, Aram poured himself into this, so we're going to put a link to that in the description of this article or this podcast, this video on YouTube. But what people will notice on the top 100 list and where I have to start, why do you hate Ronny Mauricio?
And this is something I'll always reiterate probably until everybody gets sick of hearing it. I am so happy to be wrong with these guys, right? Like for me, it's a little bit it's one take, right? It's one take where I'm wrong. For Ronny Mauricio, it's his freaking career. So I hope Ronny Mauricio absolutely puts it all together and shoves it up my you know what. Like that would be phenomenal. I'd be thrilled with that. And I really do genuinely mean that because having friends in the minors, like I know what they're going through, and that's why I don't like to pile on players. But it seems like the Ronny Mauricio thing just keeps coming up because every time I put out the top 100, I see Mets fans say, "Oh, there must be a mistake. There's no Ronny Mauricio here." And look, I think he could still put it together and be very exciting. I just don't think that's very likely. And my issue with Mauricio is if he doesn't put it together, there's no in between, right? Like a Ronny Mauricio that puts it together, it could be an all-star, but that's very unlikely. And the fallback is nothing, right? Like there's other players, pitchers is a good example. Great stuff. Fallback, oh, he could be a bullpen arm. Or there's a guy that's a good defender, good bat to ball, not sure how the power is going to be. Oh, he could fall back on a utility guy. Like, what is Ronny Mauricio's fallback? Because he chases as high as anybody in the league, or anybody in his league, as we should talk about. The defense is spotty, and he's not really fast. He doesn't have speed, which is surprising given that was something that was the hope out of the gate. Now you see maybe almost a below average runner. It's all on the bat. And the bat, I just don't know how much trust and faith I have in it, but I will say he's swinging it well out of the gate, and you liked what you saw.
Yeah, that's what I want to get to. When I think about the trip I just went on, the only big takeaway I have from what I saw from these prospects is Ronny Mauricio completely changed my opinion on him. I
Ooh,
was with your school of
completely.
thought. Yeah, the more I looked at it and I'm watching the at bats back, not to say that I think he's definitely going to get there, but the comp I hit you with was Joey Gallo, and the reason why I said that is from watching his at bat, 4 at bats that I saw, lifted everything, all 4 of them, hit a home run, hit a double. It was a great game for Ronny Mauricio. So I caught him at the right time. And I see why there's the prospect evaluators out there that fall in love with him, because when you watch him in
Oh, for
person,
sure.
you just see this huge, I mean, an athlete's body, if there's ever an athlete's body, the guy, and he also carries himself with a certain level of swagger, a bunch of chains, some sick neck or sick glasses, just has the star, persona around him when he's out there. And what I saw from his at bats was, I think he's going to be one of those guys that's going to always take a first strike, and he's going to try to get himself into a hitter's count because he doesn't necessarily have the best approach up there. And once he gets into that hitter's count, he's looking to lift. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's one of these guys that strikes out 250 times but hits 45 home runs. And so that's the way I look at him. Is I look at him as a guy that is going to lean all launch angle and is going to just try to get his one pitch a game that
Totally.
he could do damage on. And if he does that, and he does that over a long stretch, there is a better chance that he can actually be something. But I don't think, when I look at him, I don't look at him as this 5-tool shortstop prospect. I look at him as an eventual right fielder that can run into 45 home runs.
And I totally agree with that. And I think that could be an outcome. My thing is that's not a top 100 prospect. Like a guy, that's where I'm at. Right?
Fair.
I love, and your pickups are 100% correct. Like he is hitting the ball in the air more. He was hitting the ball on the ground way too much before. So he's leaned into who he is. Like before, I felt like he was a swing and miss guy who puts up some crazy exit velos, who was still trying to be that all toolsy shortstop. That's just not him, right? Lean into who you are. And that's not saying like go all or nothing, swing or miss. He's actually been a little bit more patient, but it's get the ball in the air, lean into your plus power, and just know that that's going to kind of be the player that you are. That will make him more likely a big leaguer. And I think he's improved his prospect outlook a ton, but he's just not a top 100 prospect for me, given the question at shortstop. Probably moving to a corner, whether it's third base or corner outfield. Still questions with, can he walk at all? Is he going to ever get on base? Puts even more pressure on the hit tool, but he's still just 21 years old. I think could still very likely be a very exciting impact bat. But it's just really not quite a top 100 guy for me. But he's still, you look at the Mets top prospect write-up we did, like there's still a lot of positives in there. He's still well up there for the Mets. I'm not saying Mauricio's doomed. there's just 100 guys I would take in front of him right now. And that's not the biggest indictment in the world. I think people have to realize how talented the minor leagues is.
Yeah, there's a lot of great players out there, and I think again, I saw him on the perfect day because even the day I saw him, he actually looked good at shortstop too. Was the funny
Oh
thing? Like
gosh.
he made a great running catch into the outfield. He made a play in the hole where he had a perfect throw to first base. Just the guy beat it by half a step. So he had everything going that day. I don't know if he knew that there was someone out there that'd be talking about him on podcasts, and he put on a show for me. But of the three guys that were there, and I will say too. I've said it already, but I just want to reiterate since we're talking prospects. If you're in the Northeast area, go to Binghamton right now. The chance to see Baty, Mauricio, and Alvarez on the same team, it's really cool, and I think you get a really great look at them. You can get really up and close, and before the
Super cool.
games, you can meet these guys too. So it was really cool to see them out there. I want to we've already talked about all these guys. You can look back at some of our past episodes where I've had Arm on. We've talked about Alvarez. We've talked about Baty. I want to talk about Vientos and everything as well. The one thing that I'm starting to wonder, my takeaway from Mark Vientos, he was playing first base over at Syracuse. I'm starting to think about his long-term fit in this Mets organization. Here's my argument where now I'm starting to not sour on him as a player, but think that he might have more value as a trade piece than
Mhm.
as a part of this team. When you have Pete Alonso already in place, when I watched Brett Baty, and to me, Brett Baty, they're playing him in left a little bit as well. He's going to be like, if I look at the Mets farm system right now, he's the guy I could see on the team this year. Like he's the guy I could see that gets called up in August and is that impact piece to put you over the top. With Vientos, now that they're playing him at first, I wonder if they're trying to get some good tape out there that he can actually play a position, because it's been a slow start for him. But I do wonder if his best value is as a trade piece, and you can see him go to a team where he can play first base every day and just mash.
It seems like he's really pressing, man. Because what really got me going on Mark Vientos was, I mean, we know how talented he is, and another guy that was drafted as a shortstop, but obviously was just not capable of sticking there. And when I look at what he did last year, that really got me going was he was somebody that has crazy, crazy power, right? And a super aggressive approach that wasn't walking, similar to Ronny Mauricio. But then he pops up last year and he cuts down the chase rate. He improves the walk rate almost by twofold, cuts down the strikeout rate, gets the ball in the air more, like doing all the things that you just talked about with Ronny Mauricio, but on a different level. And the production was really backing it up. And I'm thinking, okay, this guy's young, and he still is. He just turned 22 years old, but as a 21-year-old in Double A, to do what he was doing was absolutely phenomenal. And the walk rates and the strikeout rates were palatable. The problem with Vientos this year, it seems like he can sniff the big leagues. He's right at Triple A, and he's regressed a little bit with the approach. He's extremely aggressive. He's trying to do too much. And the struggles in the early going seem to have spilled into the field too. He hasn't been great defensively at third, and he has just been a little bit of a mess. And I do think that you look at the organization. You have Brett Baty, who is one of the more exciting prospects in baseball, a pretty high floor guy too. You have somebody like Ronny Mauricio, who could easily move to third base or corner outfield, like we talked about. So where does Vientos really fit in when you have the talent you already have at the big league level? I think you could see him as a potential trade piece. I absolutely agree. I think better days are ahead for Vientos. I'm not going to make too much of a slow start, and I try to reiterate this with people a lot, is it is freaking cold out there for a lot of these guys. And Vientos is a South Florida kid who is not accustomed to playing in the cold. And I've talked to a lot of players across Double and Triple A in the Midwest and Northeast, wherever, and they say, man, like, try hitting 98 miles per hour on your hands when it's 30 degrees. So some of these guys just really start slow. Spencer Torkelson's a notorious slow starter. I don't know if that explains everything for Vientos, but the thing with a guy like him that started so slowly through 21 games is he could have a stretch of 5 games where he hits 2 home runs and, piles up 6 hits. And all of a sudden we're looking at a 240 hitter with, a 900 OPS, and we're like forgetting about the slow start. I will say, though, it has been as ugly as it could get for Vientos out of the gate, and it's something to monitor moving forward, without a doubt.
We will have more of my conversation with Arm Leighton in just a minute, but first I want to tell you about betonline.net, which is your number one source for all of your betting stats and sports info. Find out the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including this year's basketball playoffs and the start of the Major League Baseball season. Little story for you tonight. My brother-in-law was looking at some live betting on BetOnline, and you know what he saw? He saw a line plus 2,000 on the Mets to win because they were losing by 6 runs. So what did he do? He said, I believe. You got to believe, I believe. Threw $5 on it. Pretty good bet. BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sports wagering information, from live betting to playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and the action. BetOnline, where the game starts. I do want to mention, since you bring up the weather, as a South Florida guy, how did you do that for 4 years at Syracuse? I mean, the weather was brutal and just like muggy and gross. I mean, just nasty out there.
And you dodged the worst of it. I mean,
I
so
bet I
you made
did.
it to Syracuse before I made it back. I haven't gone back since I graduated. Loved my time there in doses. It was an unbelievable opportunity to really hone in on broadcasting and journalism and everything like that. But man, I'd be lying to you if I told you by the third year I wasn't, counting the days to sneaking home to South Florida and trying to fit in trips to go to other baseball stadiums or whatever because the weather was so brutal. It's tough. I still can't believe that Syracuse has a minor league baseball team, because we would try to go to the games early in the year and it was so cold that we would just be like, we're not going. And we would wait. But no, it is definitely tough to play in the early going. I am very interested to see how Vientos bounces back, but are Mets fans already starting to get worried about him? Because what I see right now is also just an egregious ground ball rate. And that was
Yeah.
something that was never Vientos's issue. It was his issue early going. And then we talk about getting the ball in the air more. It seems like he regressed on all those things he took to the next level last year.
Yeah, like you said, I think it's a combination probably of the weather, of him pressing. He was so close to. I mean, last year, if you really wanted to make the argument, he could have been promoted last year. You could have,
Yeah.
with the way he was hitting. So, I think I don't think fans have it completely soured on him. But I think if you look at this organization long term, the other kind of duplication I see is Alvarez, because I don't think that Francisco Alvarez is ever going to be a guy that's going to catch over 100 games. I think that during the regular season, if the Mets do it right, he's going to be like a 75 game catcher, 75 games DH, and then like during the playoffs, he'll be starting every day behind the plate. But I think that they're going to manage Alvarez the way they would have liked to have managed Piazza back in the day, and
Yeah.
because of that, that's just another duplication of a right-handed power bat. And I think because of that, and then I want to talk a bit about Baty, but what do you think about that? The idea that Alvarez has a little bit of duplication with Vientos with their future role on this team.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of corner or immobile to a degree power, and again, yeah, I definitely think that makes him Vientos a bit expendable. Alvarez is somebody that I would want to get as many at bats as possible without just draining him behind the dish, right? I mean, this is somebody that's going to get to the big leagues young, probably at 21 years
Dude,
old. We'll get to the
real
big
quick,
leagues.
by the way, from seeing him, like he uses a lot of energy out there. Like you see him running back into the dugout, gassed, and he takes hacks,
And
absolute hacks. He is swinging for the fences on every pitch.
and it's amazing because while doing that, he produces really impressive contact rates for the power output that he's given you. That's a guy that's going to get up at 21 years old. Do you want him catching every day from 21 on? It's going to wear him down, especially for a guy that is a very explosive swinger. Taking that explosion away over time is going to impact him in the box. It's a very lower half driven swing that you want him to feel fresh. So that's a guy that I definitely would want to give some days off from behind the dish. And I'm with you 100%. It does kind of add another kind of one of those bats that when he's not catching is going to be either first base or DH. And at that point, there's only so many of those kinds of spots that you have. We're seeing that with the Mets right now.
Yeah, and that brings me to Brett Baty, because I look at Baty and he looked pretty comfortable in left field from when I saw him out there starting there in that one game. I know that I've heard really good things about the way his defense at third base continues to progress. And you look at a Mets team now that likes to be flexible. I see him being able to fill a similar role to a Jeff McNeil, being able to play a little bit of outfield, a little bit of infield, being pretty versatile. I have another interesting compo I want to throw at you. It goes not only just with the swing itself with Baty, but also kind of the demeanor of who he is. Do you see a little Christian Yelich and Brett Baty?
Oh, absolutely. Because here's the similarity with the two of them is when Christian Yelich was coming up, everybody was like, there's plus power there, but he's not tapping into it. And they're like, when is he going to tap into it? When is he going to tap into it? When is he going to tap into it? But he always had a great approach, and he always produced just enough to continue to be a top prospect and continue to climb through the minor leagues. So he gets to the big leagues, and it was still, where's the power? Where's the power? And it would start to eke up, and then we finally saw it. I think that's what's going to happen with Baty is we're going to keep saying, oh, like this guy could be uh, an all-star if he puts the power together, if he can tap into the game power, but he's going to continue to produce, be an above average regular, and then boom, it hits. So I do see that a lot. I think that's a very fair comp. Baty's a guy that has a smooth swing, really is a sneaky big dude at 6'3", 215, 210. And again, he uses the whole field well, foul line to foul line. I like that comp because I believe in the bat to ball, and I definitely believe that there's more power in there as he continues to try to get the ball in the air a bit more, continues to work on back spinning baseballs. He's going to get there, but the thing is he'll probably reach the big leagues before he fully taps into his power, which, isn't the end of the world at all.
Yeah, like I said, I honestly think I could see him in a Mets uniform this year. The things that I saw, he had a 15 pitch at bat where he fouled off 8 straight pitches. I mean, just he's a guy that he looked of all the hitters that I saw over my trip, he was the one that looked the most comfortable in the box. That could just be with the fact that I think he was hitting 350 when I got there, but I really liked his approach, and I see him maybe being the closest to be able to give the Mets professional MLB quality at bats this season.
At least against righties too. That's something I want to watch too and monitor is how are his splits. They've been all right in the past. They're a little bit rocky this year. But if he's up at the end of the year and getting spots against righties for whatever reason, if the Mets for some reason needed him to be, I think he could do well in that capacity. There's a little bit of that swing and miss in the early going, and it's not really swing and miss because of a bad approach or a bad swing. It's more just, I think he's trying to be patient, catching himself in these, pitchers counts at times. And, these guys in Double A will execute some good pitches. But what we've seen is 112 plus mile per hour exit velos from Baty and only one home run to show for it. So I'm interested to see how that continues to develop because 112, 113 is off, way up there, top 3-4%. So I think that's something that needs to start translating into homers. And once that does, I think that's when we'll see him at the big league level. Because if you rush somebody like that to the big leagues, they get into survival mode, start trying to focus bat on ball too much. And I think you really want to have Baty focus on leaning into his power and tapping into that. So it'll be interesting to see how the Mets, decide to handle him. But I definitely think that this guy could end up being the best offensive piece not named Francisco Alvarez without a doubt.
Yeah, he's got a ton of potential. I think that the one path that I actually could see him getting to the big leagues this year, it would be a combination of him just being that good, but also if Dominic Smith doesn't come around, like that would be where you'd say, all right, we want a better left-handed bat to put in this lineup. So let's try to see if we can have it with Baty.
Absolutely. And again, the numbers against righties have been phenomenal this year. He's hitting 315 against righties. It's been a little bit worse against lefties. So if you want to put him in those spots where you're shielding him from left on left just in the early going, I think that's something he could probably be able to handle by the middle or end of the season.
Well, as always, thank you so much for joining me, Aram. Why don't you let everyone know where they can find your work in the million different places where you're doing podcasts?
Yeah, absolutely. So we got the Just Baseball show, which we're excited about talking about the Mets, obviously very often, as they're one of the main talking points in baseball right now. The Call Up podcast, where we're talking prospects all the time, continuing to go through our top 100 list. On Monday's episode, we will be continuing down through the final 30 prospects of our top 100, kind of breaking down and explaining, what the reasoning was behind that, which means there will be a few Mets that we'll be discussing there on the final 30. I think you can guess who the two are there, but we're talking about the Mets system in the coming weeks as well, talking about a lot of different prospects there. So looking forward to doing that. And of course, Ryan, thanks for having me on as always.
That's going to be all for today's edition of Locked On Mets. We'll see what happens with the rest of this series between the Mets and the Phillies. Apparently, there's a lot of rain in the forecast, so we could see this 4-game set quickly turn into a 3-game set. We'll just have to wait and see. But the Mets do have Max Scherzer and Chris Bassett set to go this weekend. So after taking this game, you got to feel really good about their chances to win this series. And I'll be discussing all of that on Monday's show. As always, thank you for listening. Make sure you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you follow me on Twitter at Finkelstein Ryan. Follow the show at Locked On Mets. Thank you for making Locked On Mets your first listen every day. Now for your second listen, check out Locked On MLB, hosted by Paul Francis Sullivan. Locked On MLB is where you want to go to catch up on everything going on in Major League Baseball. You can follow Locked On MLB wherever you get podcasts.